This is going to be a hard one to top with Tiffany, but we'll do our best. Yeah. Sorry, I put that there. Yeah. And you can use this one. So I'm Cynthia Stonnington. I'm with Mayo Clinic.
And I'm Pauline Davies, Hugh Downs School of Human Communication, ASU.
So our story began back in 2017 when I was the director of learner well-being for all of the learners at the Mayo Clinic in Arizona campus. I happened to be going down to Sydney, Australia, where both Pauline and I have deep connections. That's a whole nother story. But we were sitting over a cup of tea, and I was telling her about some of the work I was doing. And I was sharing with her about how concerned we all were, as we've heard throughout this day, about the alarming rates of physician and actually healthcare professional suicide and burnout. And that certainly there was a lot of systemic drivers causing some of the stress that we've heard about today, but also the stigma associated with help seeking. And at the time, and think that was before we've changed a lot of the questions on the credentialing and licensure renewals. But even so, even with that advance, that thanks to the Wellbeing Collaborative that we've had, we still see people really feeling like, that sense that they have to be strong and do it all themselves, and then really suffer in silence. And so because of that, because of all of these different pressures, of course, we've seen an alarming attrition rate and people reducing their FTE, leaving the profession, and God forbid, dying by suicide. So I was sharing this with Pauline, and she was sharing with me that some of the work from her colleagues at ASU that they were doing with undergraduates. Specifically, they were working on alcohol use disorder and collecting stories that then were used in a forum where people had a chance to really talk authentically about some of these real stories that were collected in a setting that was very unique, and really kind of begin to break down some of that stigma and ability to connect and support each other. So we thought, why don't we do something similar with healthcare professions, and we thought we'd start with physicians.
So when Cynthia told me this story about how badly off physicians were with burnout, she's mentioned I was really shocked, and I thought, well, with my experience as an interviewer and a former broadcaster and a professor, I could do something to help, and we would collect these stories. So we interviewed 27 physicians from all different specialities and private practice and working in big hospitals from as wide a geographic area as we could find. And I did the interviews wherever was convenient, in person, to get that human connection wherever possible, coffee shops, even my house or their place of work. And I was just astounded by what they said to me. So deep, so personal. And before collecting these interviews, I was only interacting with physicians as a patient. And I thought that, these are such capable, intelligent, smartly educated people. Of course, if they could solve my problems, of course they can solve their own problems. What problems could they possibly have? And when I heard the stories, I just wanted, as I said, to do something. So as I collected the stories, it was so emotional at times. At times we cried. And, it was some of the stories, of course, some of them were told about difficulties that actually then came through and it had a happy outcome. But there were one or two stories that were just intractable, couldn't be solved. And one I deeply remember is a young woman who was double board certified in pain medicine, sports medicine, and she was in private practice and wanted to really help patients. That's why she went into the field, to actually help with chronic pain. So unfortunately, she discovered that her patients were mostly addicted to opioids, and she wanted to get them off. she couldn't. It was so difficult. And her manager called her in and said, "You've got to keep the patients happy," by which she realized he meant you've got to keep on prescribing, which goes against all your principles. This young woman was devastated. What does she do? Does she even give up the profession? May do. Another lovely young woman, and this very much resonates about the second victim syndrome that we've just heard, had a dreadful medication error. She was a young physician given the opportunity to treat someone and gave them the wrong drug. Well, not just the wrong drug, but the wrong quantity of that particular drug. There were two alternatives. She was so humiliated, devastated, felt so terrible that she couldn't tell anyone about this. Of course, her colleagues knew, but she couldn't tell anyone else, not even her husband, for 2 years. And she didn't actually relax into her role as a physician for many, many years after that. So we compiled these stories wanting to have them as lessons to help other physicians. And I can't tell you how much I admired the people who told me their stories with such honesty. They did it to help others. And I personally, as a patient, do feel much more confident to actually see a physician who cares enough to help their fellow physicians. I know that they want to care for me as well. So that's what we did, and that was my experience.
Yes.
So
we just want to give you an example. What we also did is with two of your colleagues. Do you want to just say?
So two of my colleagues took some of these stories, and just to give you a flavour of the sort of content of these stories, I'm going to play a little example that they put together. They made it into a film as well. So we've got a book and we've got films as well. So can we play that?
That residency program had people all at the top of their class, a number of them with multiple degrees, and the program itself was competitive. What I mean by competitive is that we would see patients in groups on rounds. And I think the sense of competition was sparked by the fact that individual residents were made responsible for specific patients. Well, one co-resident would actually round on other residents' patients, read through the charts, and essentially try to answer the questions about a resident's patient before the resident themselves could answer the question. That was stressful for all of us. Sadly, that individual eventually, a number of years into his career, committed suicide. And it was a total shock. I mean, this was one of the most intelligent, high-achieving people I'd ever met in my life. There was no indication of instability, certainly nothing that would rise to the level of suicide at a later time. That residency program had people.
There we go. So what we ended up doing, in addition, initially we put some of these stories into a film, and that's just a little clip from it. But we then, because we were so moved by so many of the stories, we ended up putting them into a book that is now available open access, meaning that anyone can get it for free, download it, and use it. And what we've done is we've created, after each story, a series of prompts. And we think that, and I've used it, for instance, in the medical school and then with trainees as well. So basically the way I've been using it is to pick a story that's relevant to your audience. So we have stories from everything from mental health issues, addiction, to work-life balance and leadership, all sorts of things. By the way, all of the people that contributed stories signed consents to have the stories published. And also, we did change the names and certain details just to make it a little bit more private. But in any event, so what we do is we we'll take in a room, we'll have the people in the audience will each take a paragraph and go around, read it out loud. It takes about 5 minutes to read the story out loud. And then we break into smaller groups of, say, 4 or 5, and then ask each of the groups to do 1 or 2 prompts. For example, the prompt from that story, in chapter 6 that we just shared, is that, I can't hardly read. Describe a time. I can't read it. Can you read it? My eyes are bad. In any event,
Describe a time when the pursuit of a goal was a barrier to social connectiveness or appreciation of the moment.
So, and then what we do, thank you, it's my age. Then what we do is we ask the participants to then do reflections by writing initially, and then get into discussion. And we found that it's just been an amazing chance for people to sort of recognize themselves in that story, to share with each other, and to realize that we all have shared experiences, and then to support each other. It's also an opportunity to share resources for extra help, like, for instance, EAP, peer support, et cetera. And so we really think that this approach has been quite profound and deep, and really while these stories were physicians, really apply to a lot of different areas, but I think there's room to collect even more stories, particularly nurses, APPs, and to do similar types of work as a way of finding, it's just maybe a little bit more novel way of finding ways to connect and break through some of that isolation and suffering that people do in silence together. And so we...
Yes, so I'm going to end this and tell you, actually, it's very useful for medical students as well, or even for university students going to go into medicine, because we've got a few stories from medical students, and some even from talking about how difficult it was doing the MCAT. So we hope to make it very useful for everyone. And if you, in nursing or in any other fields in the health profession, would like us to do some stories, for instance, about nursing, Cynthia and I would be very interested to speak with you, because it was something that we felt was very fulfilling, and plus I think we enjoyed working together. So please contact us, and thank you very much.